In Act 2, our main plot is to talk to the Arishok because he wants to. The other plot is to also talk to the Arishok, and the final one is to go home. So we go home and Aveline pops in, and we get a new main plot. Cool. Instead, we go see the Arishok. Turns out someone stole fake plans for their explosive powder. Instead, it was a poisonous gas recipe. We go to Lowtown, then outside and find Javeris. But there's an elf involved, so we go back to Kirkwall in a ridiculous alleyway full of poison while we find a crowbar or something to close these 4 kegs that are spewing poisonous gas as ninjas drop from the sky and try to stop us. I don't know why they're trying to stop us jumping into the deadly poison, but they are. It's pretty silly. After doing this 4 times, we find the elf, and she's also quite silly. But that's okay because murderous insanity is a perfectly acceptable plot. She's annoyed about losing her people to the Qun, and so a lot more dead people should solve that problem. See? Crazy. So we get back to the Arishok, and he tells us he's really here because something was stolen from him years ago. He won't tell us what though, but he's seemed to at least calm down. Right. So we make our way back to the viscount. Turns out a peaceful envoy from the Qunari sent to the viscount has gone missing, so we go talk to Muad'Dib, and it turns out the escorts were paid off. So we go find the guy who got paid off in the Hanged Man and pump him for info. Turns out the Grand Cleric paid the guy to look the other way as the Qunari envoy was taken. So we make our way to the Chantry. And we find Mother Patrice. She's involved but not telling us how. She reconciles with us by providing the name of a radical Templar who did the deed and the location to meet her to hopefully find him. We talk to Elthina, but she doesn't seem too concerned. Elthina, large oxmen who just might kill us all, were angered by an overzealous Templar who's rousing a mob to fight them in your name. And you don't care nor want to get involved?
The path to righteousness is never as straight and narrow as we wish. I truly hoped this would not go so far. But do not trouble yourself. I will step in when it's time.
Alright, so we find Sir Varnell, kill off his mob, but not before he kills one of the delegates. An overzealous Templar saw the opposition from an invading philosophy, the Qun, and in his small extremist way tried to fight back. The Viscount is aware of the situation and has gratefully thanked us for our involvement and our continued guidance. So far, the plot is developing rather well. Through helping the Viscount, I can clearly see how Hawke is becoming a prominent figure in Kirkwall. So we look to our journal and notice that thing Aveline was talking about, which was to talk to some guy named Emeric in the gallows. He's playing detective on the trail of a serial murderer. His prime suspect is some guy named DuPuis. So we follow the map and discover DuPuis was controlling creatures as well as inquiring about mages in Starkhaven, that he's been using blood magic. There's an apology from Knight Commander Meredith about Emeric's search for DuPuis' estate, a chest of women's clothes, and finally DuPuis himself. Turns out DuPuis captured a woman whom he thought would be the next target, so that the killer would somehow break into his house. Okay. We find out DuPuis lost his sister and has been tracking the killer down for some time. The killer sends his victims white lilies before taking them. Though DuPuis' methods are questionable, there's no evidence to support he's the killer, and the chest of clothing probably belonged to his sister anyway. So, back to update Emeric, but it turns out someone knows we're working for him and has probably led him into a trap. Ooh, the plot thickens. So we're off to save Emeric, which ends up getting us ambushed. However, Emeric is not around, and we don't know who tried to kill him. So it's really a dead end, and thus the quest ends. Oh, well, that was a bit disappointing. We were playing amateur detective, and then poof, nothing. We end up going back to our estate because the game says we should, and Gamlin is all flustered because he can't find our mom. Turns out someone sent her white lilies. Wait, someone sent her white lilies. Oh, give me a frickin' break. We just came from finishing a plot that involved a murderer who sends white lilies to its victims. And now we find out our mother is missing after being sent white lilies. Wow, what a coincidence. In case you're not paying attention, this is the most contrived part of the story. Thus begins the hunt for our mom, and it turns out, boom, we find Gamlin in on the first lead. Seems a kid saw our mom get kidnapped, and there's a trail of blood. By trail, I mean someone was losing a few quarts across city streets so we can follow it like breadcrumbs. Or like whole loaves of bread, maybe. The trail is not only fresh, but we find that there are traces of blood magic in it. Throughout this entire time, Hawke is completely flipping out over this blood trail. I can't blame them either. So we find a secret entrance in the foundry, fight some shades, and end up finding Alessa, that woman DuPuis was holding captive to lure the real killer. Either the real killer is not only extremely knowledgeable of our activities and works extremely fast, or DuPuis also knew of us and was helping the real killer. Do you see how contrived this is coming off? Either that or the sense of time between quests is just completely gone. We end up finding his lair and a shrine which looks just like our mom. It seems the killer is doing something with necromancy and blood magic and was getting books from someone named O. We finally encounter the killer, and yes, he's a loony who created his own Frankenstein creature by taking body parts from the various women he killed to recreate his dead lover. No, really. I know this is a world of magic where stuff like necromancy and summoning demons is possible, but what the hell kind of a plot is this? How long has this guy been doing this? Aside from having Hawke oddly freak out at the weirdest B-movie horror scenes this has, what was the point of killing Hawke's mom? Okay, we kill the guy, and now we potentially have 3 family members who have been killed or at least have all gone away. The only thing I see out of this is the person who cares about you comes to comfort you, or just Aveline. Aside from Bodan and Sandal, the Hawke family is essentially gone from the household, and there was nothing they or you could do about it. If this is to showcase Hawke's isolation, or lack of family life, or some kind of emotional hurdle they have to face, or that the family was holding Hawke back from doing what he or she had to do to move forward as a hero, well, where is that? Hawke's plot of Act 1 was fueled by wanting to provide for their family, but they're all gone now. Unless this is a belly of the whale or a rescue transition a la Hero's Journey, where our static brick Hawke is at the lowest part of the story, I don't see that. Could someone please tell me why any of the Hawke family had to die? It certainly wasn't for dramatic purposes. Even if the sibling doesn't die, they're simply not there, and we get their silhouette in the character select screen. In fact, the DLC with the dog provides more life in the household than any other characters. How is Dragon Age 2 a more personal story than the first if everyone in the Hawke family is gone and Hawke doesn't go through any conflict or change? So anyway, we're back at home and it seems the Viscount wants our help again, and it's about the Qun. Oh, okay. Getting a little redundant. Well, let's say consistent is a better word. At least I'd like to think that. Maybe with the plot with the Qun developed, the tension has escalated. Instead, the Viscount's son decided to join the Qun, and we're to get him back. Okay, well, great, another plot. Now, it's not unheard of. If we bothered with some subplots, we'd have found out this son was a sympathizer. But unfortunately, it has no bearing on the death of the envoy or the blackpowder plots.
No, but we know who would. Mother Patrice.
Oh, there's the connection. Well, that's good then. Now, if it started off with her, that makes sense. So we're off to find Mother Patrice at the Chantry. And she just killed the Viscount's son. Okay, why would a conniving person kill the city leader's son, try to blame it on us, all because he wanted to join the Qun? She says it is because she thinks him a heretic. I'm not seeing the heretic connection here. What if the son joined the Elves, or the Coterie, or the Dwarven Merchants Guild, or any other group? Would she kill him still? Is the Qun even a religion? Why would she do this, when she was the almost directly implicated with the previous scene between Templars and the Qun? You see, a plot should develop along the personalities and intentions of the characters in the story. Characters, through their motives, make the plot. The plot doesn't make characters. The characters in a story shouldn't be thrown around by it or changed just to fit whatever the plot demands. That's not only bad development, it demeans the concept of characterization. Now, Mother Patrice has just been reduced to simple zealotry. Even worse than Sir Varnell, she's completely dumb. Her reasonings are asinine. She somehow kidnapped and killed the Viscount's son in the Chantry out of religious fanaticism? We know she's passionate about her religion, but she was previously intelligent. Here, there was no intelligible motive for this to occur. And then she tries to frame us for being followers of the Qun. What? And then she just dies. What? And then the game, or whatever subtitle there is, magically tells us we have mail. What? No Bodan rushing to our side, no little bird whispering in our ear, just the game literally telling us, go home and check your mail. If we look at the completed quest, it says the Viscount's son, Seamus, is dead. The Arishok will not be pleased. Why? What does the Arishok care? Retribution has been enacted. What does he give a crap about the Viscount's son? What's the death of one newly ordained Qunari compared to the others, considering we already know he doesn't really care for him? This development was turning out to be one of the best parts of the story, and I thought Mother Patrice was going to be a really great conniving evil character, and I really liked the Qunari involvement, but the plot here is just bad. Anyway, we go back to our home because so far our mailbox is the plot provider. And again, it's not. It's Aveline. What? So now the game just lied to us. Fantastic. It doesn't even know what's going on. Apparently there are some converts that are hiding behind the Qun after they committed a crime by killing some city guards. Now, if there were converts and the Viscount's son was a convert, why couldn't they just have tied those two stories together? Was that so difficult? Wouldn't the Viscount's son creating a mob to all get converted have been a good reason for Mother Patrice to be all murderous? Instead, it's this disjointed mess where the game's subtitles are telling us what to do. We finally meet up with Aveline and the Arishok, and we discover the criminals took matters into their own hands after their sister was raped. And we get the two best choices in the story. Aveline says the elves took the law into their own hands, but we do that several times a day, so we're hardly one to judge them. We can agree or disagree with Aveline, or choose middle of the road. The Arishok is accurate in his description of the corruption of the city and the people in it. Although he paints the entire city with a broad brush, he's still accurate and sees the Qun as the solution. The Arishok asks you for your opinion on what we should do with the criminals. Of course, the choice doesn't impact anything. That would actually have meaning, but it's nice that he asked because he respects you. Even though it's the illusion of choice, it still has the value of addressing the player directly and showcases the Arishok's opinion. After all these years, he finally reveals he's looking for some kind of relic, and instead of waiting around anymore, he decides to get rid of the pestilence in the city, which I assume is, well, the entire city. The city ends up getting assaulted by the Qunari and their followers. The Grey Wardens make a cameo, but it seems they're just passing through. Okay, sure, whatever. So we make our way to the keep, and a cutscene reveals Knight Commander Meredith, who saves us from a Qunari mage. We then meet up with Orsino, whoever this guy is, and we can make a choice of who leads who. It doesn't really matter because we end up doing it ourselves. We make it to the Arishok, who beheads the Viscount. Great, there goes all our favor with the head of government. So much for our gradual rise to power, but we need to prove ourselves to the Arishok by killing more Qunari. Okay, I guess he just wants to see it in person then. But in my playthrough, the only way to solve this is to kill every Qunari in the compound, including him. Now, this scene could have played out a few different ways based on subplots, which is really, really cool, as it shows that subplots do change the main plot in some small way. Hell, maybe they were playing Alpha Protocol on the weekend. After Orsino and Meredith arrive, we're then declared the champion of Kirkwall. Cool, that's pretty kind of you, but it was more of a collective effort with Orsino and Meredith holding the rest at bay and my entire team taking on the Arishok and his men. But yeah, I'll get that. They'll need a figurehead or something, so why not? And then we get another 3-year time lapse for no reason. This could have taken place at least in 3 weeks? The worst of this is the entire city has been without a leader for 3 years, and Meredith ends up taking that de facto role regardless, which is odd since Hawke is the most important and influential person in the city, and after the first few weeks it would seem pretty obvious that the public outcry would want the champion to take up the mantle of Viscount, considering the people don't have one. This is perhaps the best act in the story, because it deals with the premise, which is to show Hawke's rise to power, which shows off how being a busybody might have made them important. It has a lot of questions and odd situations, but it deals with the most interesting concepts, namely found in dealings with the Qunari. Their philosophy makes Dragon Age 2 stand out. Unfortunately, Hawke's rise to power, through favors with the Viscount, is destroyed, and Hawke becoming a champion is just a gimme. any potentially inhibiting family issues may seem to be resolved or could be developing. The two major powers in the city have been destroyed, allowing for the main theme, Mages and Templars, to culminate. Unfortunately, this theme goes nowhere, which appears to be the main style of storytelling in Dragon Age 2. A heck of a lot of side plots that are loosely connected, yet supposedly all interrelated in some unknown series of causes and effects that will happen later, after several years. Dragon Age 2 is a prime example of how time skips should not be used in storytelling.